Guys, I made a song. Yeah, thank you. Thank you guys, I really appreciate it. All these people out here are so happy for me. Thank you. I made it for a Cymatics slash San Holo remix contest where you had to use a sample pack full of sounds from San Holo's song Light. So now I'm gonna go into the DAW and I'm gonna show you how I made it. All right, boom, we are in the DAW. So, like I said, this song was made for a contest with Cymatics and San Holo where we were given a sample pack and we had to use the samples in that. So this video is mostly just going to go over how I use those samples to build the track. It's not going to be super technical. But that being said, if you have any questions about anything that I did or anything that I go over too quickly, definitely let me know in the comments and I will expand on them. So let's go ahead and get the sample pack out. There were two sub packs in it. The main one we had to use was this one right here, this light sample pack. But there were a bunch of samples in this bonus sample pack that I also use. So I'll go over each one and how I used it. So first things first, let me play you a little bit of the track. It sounds like this. Pretty darn sweet, right? So yeah, first sound we're going to go over is that main pad sound. That's not from the pack. That's just something I use for kind of the foundation of the track. It's a serum patch that I'm using for another song that I'm working on that's not out yet, but it's kind of just it's not, I guess those aren't saw waves, but it has kind of a saw feeling to it. Eighth LFO on it, I believe, and I'm just doing some 7 chords in the key of A. So it's basically just an A7, a C7, and an F7, and there's some additional intervals in there just to keep it interesting, but something like this. So that guy right there. Okay, so now let's actually get into the sample pack. So I'm going to open up the light samples, and we'll just go through these one by one. Oh man, I love this. So here's our first one, the Blessed Light snare. And I don't know if you can see this. Let me move this over real quick. Yeah. San's whole thing is about how blessed any given day is, or any given object, and this snare is 99% blessed. So clearly I didn't need to do much to it because it was already 99% blessed. So I just put that in here at the end. He's got a main drum groove that I use throughout most of the song. It sounds like this. And then at the very end of the song, just to add a little bit of additional impact, that's where I add this snare in. So I'm going to play one bar of just the drum loop, and then you'll hear that additional snare come in over top of it. Cool. So lots of reverb there too on that on the second snare. So I'm going to play that back in the track. 1, 2, 3. Dope. Okay. So our next sound here is the 808. Awesome. Lots of like mid overtones and harmonics in it, which makes it super fat, and I love that. So that one I just plugged into EXS24. Obviously, I'm on Logic, so that is my go-to sampler. I've actually used Battery a lot in this project too, which, oh man, is such a freaking blessing. Because I didn't really know that it had all the capabilities of Ableton's Simpler, but it does have some things you can do in it that EXS24 makes a little more difficult. So depending on the sound, I may use EXS24 or I may use Battery. For the 808, I used EXS24. I didn't know I put a variation on the attack speed, but I did. So yeah, pretty simple. Just plugged it in. you can load samples in and kind of give them a range of notes, and you can select whether you want to pitch them or make them one shots and all that stuff. So here's our MIDI down here. I'll just play a little bit of the 808. Cool. All right, let me bring that back down, and I'm going to play it back in the track. Cool. Okay, so the next sound was this build-up loop. Sounds like this. Pretty straightforward. It's set in perfectly. So I'm going to play a little bit of the bridge now, and you can hear the loop starting to come in. Go ahead and solo it. I love this little fill right here. So yeah, pretty straightforward there. I think I kind of EQ'd a little bit of the lows out towards the end just to make the next drop a little more impactful. The next one is this clap loop, which was just a great percussion loop to have over top of the main drum groove. So that's the main drum groove. And then here comes a clap loop on top of it. Just a really nice layer. I think if I had gone back, I probably would have put a little more highs in that clap loop. I didn't realize it was so dark. And some of that may be the sidechain compression. Okay, so next sound is our just straight clap right here, which was an awesome little thing to have again on the bridge. I needed something. I didn't have a lot of vocals going on over the bridge, so I needed something just a little more entertaining, a little more exciting. So that's where I used that clap. So I'm going to play the clap by itself. I put a really cool delay on it, and it kind of sounds like it doesn't make sense when you play it by itself, but when you put it back in the track, it's kind of doing triplets over the top. So I'm going to play a bar before it. And then straight eighths. Okay, cool. Main drum loop again, we kind of went over that. I'm going to play the part of the song where it comes in. So here we're back in the intro, right before the drop. 1, 2, 3. Solo that out. Okay, I want to jump back real quick to that the build loop, this guy, because I used it again in the second drop, just a section of it, as kind of like a fill, and it actually worked out really well. So let me play that for you real quick. It's right here. So that was part of the build. That was like the middle section of the build that I just kind of cut a section out and used as a fill. Okay, so our next sound is another drum fill he put in here, which is awesome. Sounds like that. And I put it in the second drop just to give it a little variation. So let me play that back for you. 3. Right there. Super awesome. And I actually used it again in the outro. I kind of just cut it up and looped it so that it sounded like this and did a little EQ fade in. Might have pitched that a little bit. I can't really remember, but let me play it back in context. Awesome. All right, the next sound was just the kick drum pulled out of that that loop. I don't know if it's actually the same kick drum that's in the loop, but it's just a single shot kick drum. Sounds like this. And that was great because I could put it with the main drum groove and kind of give it a little bit of variation compared to the first drop. Okay, so I'm going to play a section now of that main drum loop during the second drop without the extra kicks. And now what I was able to do with the extra kicks is kind of add, because the kick drum and the snare and the hi-hat were all in the same loop, I couldn't really do too much with the kick drum without really chopping up that loop, and I guess that is an option. I could have done that, but it was just as probably easier to just take the single shot kick and add it to the loop. So now I can get some variations in the kick drum, and it sounds like this. Awesome. EXS24 for the kick drum, for the extra kicks. Yeah. So actually the final sound in this pack was this light percussion loop that had kind of like a woody quality and then some breaths over it. Super precious, as San would say. And I love breaths. I've used those in a bunch of other, not those breaths, but I've used breaths in a lot of my other songs. It just gives you a very kind of visceral, real human connection and sound. So that's always really nice. I think one cool thing to go over with this, with that loop, is how I used it in the arrangement. I've got this main vocal that's actually in the other pack that I'm about to get to that's doing this. And then there's a break after that, after each of those phrases. So I use the breathy loop to fill in those breaks. So I'm going to play those two things together, and you can hear the call and response. So cool, a little bit of arrangement theory, very basic kind of call and response technique there. Okay, so that is actually it for the light sample pack, but I did use a bunch of the samples from the other one. Let's see where it is. So yeah, that was the light sample pack, but there was also some bonus samples that they included. And that's actually where that vocal comes from. So let's see, let's do that. I don't think I used that whole loop. All right, so I think I got the vocal chops from this vocal melody 1. And even though I used that second note in the song, I don't think I actually took it from the loop. I think I just took the first note. And then I think I put it into battery. Let's see. Oh, no, I put them straight in. Okay, so I just chopped that first note off. Go over the effects chain real quick. The Maserati vocal plugin, which is awesome. A little alter boy for a little bit of pitching, probably. OTT for compression. Logic's native pitch bend, which is really useful in some situations. So I'll actually show you where I use the pitch bend. It's right into the last drop. I think it's right here. Yeah, right here. And you can see the automation. You can see what the AU pitch bend is doing right here. So I'll play that going into the second drop. This is just to give it a little variation compared to the next phrase, because the next phrase is actually fairly similar. So I'll pitch up right here at the end. Right there. Because, like I said, the next phrase is somewhat similar. It's actually the exact same. So little itty bitty changes like that can really make the difference to the listener, not being able to detect something sounding the exact same, which can be kind of instinctively uninspiring or boring. So just little itty bitty changes like this, little automations can really make a big difference. So yeah, those vocal samples are just chopped up and put straight in. The pitching actually comes from just the native Logic pitch, which embarrassingly I only found out about kind of recently. I've been using Little Altar Boy and a bunch of other things to try to pitch things. For some reason, of all the videos I've seen online, I've never seen people use the onboard pitch tool on Logic. See people use it in Ableton all the time because it's right there on the sampler. So some of these are the normal pitch, and then some of these, let's see. So yeah, some of these are the normal pitch, and then you can see, like this one, for example, is pitched up 2 semitones. So that's how I get all of the different tones from the same note sample. And then I think I just kind of froze and bounced them, so some of them aren't reflecting that they had their pitches changed, but they did before I bounced them. And then of course Logic will just say that they're at their baseline pitch because they were bounced. So this one you can hear is pitched up 2 semitones, little pan action, and that was just a nice way to lead back into that last vocal phrase. Actually, that was a little rough. Probably should have put a fade right there. All right, so this part was a lot of fun. Using these one-shot synth hits that were in the bonus pack in the... Okay, so this was a lot of fun. Using these one-shot synth hits. These were in the bonus samples. So I used those to kind of create the melody. And this I did use battery for, yes. So here's the battery patch. I just put a little bit of decay on it, a little bit of a key range, and then just kind of worked out the melody on the piano. Yeah, so just a little simple melody like this, and I'm going to try to play it, but the latency right now between the keyboard and the computer is really high, so I may screw it up, but I'll still give it a shot. So it's just a little something like this. Yeah, so that was the first one. And then I also used it again. I could have sworn I used one of these different hits, but I actually used this one and just kind of, this time I put it into EXS and changed a little bit of the envelope settings and maybe a couple other things, different effects, and actually got a totally different sound, which sounds like this. Very cool. So this was kind of just an additional counter melody over the bridge. So here's the bridge. So let me play that in full. The counter melody was actually pretty random. I'll play it by itself, and it sounds a little strange out of context. Sometimes you just got to play random stuff, and especially when it's sitting in the background like that, it can really, dissonance is good. It can add a little dissonance, and especially right before a drop, that's going to bring it, that's going to make it resolve. The dissonance is all that much better. So now I'm going to play it back in context, and I'll solo it a little bit during. The other melody's still going on. And speaking of that first melody, I start to add a little bit of variation. A duplicate patch of that lead is right here. Let's see if I can get the MIDI. Logic is being a little iffy right now. Yeah, just some like 30 seconds or 64th notes down here, just to give that same melody line a little bit of variation. So here it is kind of copied and pasted more or less from the first drop. So when it goes to that high note, I wanted something to lead into that, a little trill thing. So I did the second patch down here, and now it sounds like this. You know, a little stutter effect. Here's another one. Yeah, just something to give it a little variation. And guys, I wanted to go back to the vocals real quick. kind of a similar concept to the lead is I used a similar melody, maybe even the same in a lot of the times for the vocals from the first drop. I probably just copied and pasted some things over, but if you do that, you want to give it a little variation somehow, just because you don't want any two things really to sound the exact same unless they're split up over the course of the song. So one of my favorite things to do is either add harmonies or especially add octaves. So here's that vocal line again in the second drop by itself. And then this, sometimes this doesn't work, but this is pitched up 12 semitones, the same vocal line, and it just added such a nice, sometimes you get that chipmunk character when you do an octave up, but this was actually just added a lot of emotion, and I really like the quality of the sound. So here's what it sounds like with that octave up. Here's the octave by itself. So that gave it a really nice variation on the second drop. Okay, so heading back to the bridge, I actually used one of these melody loops, these synth melody loops from the bonus pack to create a really cool layer. And this one's kind of interesting because I did do a good amount of work to it to make it sound much different. So it started like this. And I think I just chopped off that first part, did a little bit of repitching. I sped it up and made it sound like this. Which actually worked perfectly. I didn't think it was going to work that well, but it did. So some of these are pitched up 5 semitones. This one is only up 3. You just kind of mess around until you get the right notes. So I'm going to play that by itself, and then I'm going to put it back in context. Which worked super, super well. I was pretty happy with that. Okay, so still in the bridge, San had these beautiful suspended guitar chords sound like this. Beautiful. Is that a little quiet? Let me turn that up. Yeah, so put those in the bridge. Didn't do too much to them except pitch them. So this one was up 5 semitones, made it sound like this. A little bit of delay on there, a little bit of echo. That one's down 2 semitones. This one goes back up. Play those back for you in context. Started them a little bit before the 1 you can see right here to kind of give it that little pickup note into that next phrase. The next one you can hear really well. Soloed. And then for the very last one, I think I added an octave, yeah, and a little reverse guitar chord into it. Again, that goes back to adding variation. If you're gonna use a sound, the same sample more than once, especially close together, chronologically speaking, you want to add some variation so it doesn't sound like the exact same sound over again, unless that's what you're going for, and there are a lot of genres where you would want to do that. All right, so this is the last thing I'll touch on, and I was really happy that this worked out because I didn't think that it would, but he's got this Yamaha VSS Bark in here, which sounds like this, which didn't really, I mean, it's got that lo-fi cool San Holo sound that he uses in a lot of his tracks, but I didn't necessarily think it would work for this one. I did a little bit of editing to it. Let's see. Yeah, I pitched it up 4 semitones, rolled off a lot of the lows, and it actually made that transition halfway through the bridge. It really gave it a nice punctuation, so it sounds like this. Just the perfect little human touch, the little bit of excitement. Woo! Awesome. Let me play it one more time in context. Yeah. Well, guys, I think that's basically it. I would love for you to check out the whole track on my SoundCloud right now. Please go vote on it. I'll put the links to all of those in the description. Like I said, this is for a contest, and I do need your votes up until September 6th. So I'll put that link down. If there's anything you want me to touch on in this project that I know I went over things really quickly. So if there's anything you want me to elaborate on, please put that in the comments. And also in the comments, can someone explain to me why water is so good? That would be awesome. I'm looking for an explanation on that too as well. Thank you guys. I hope this was educational or entertaining or both. And I love you a lot. And I will see you guys soon. Bye.